Another day, another lying headline about millions of dollars that apparently I have.
He alleged that people who were tied to you or your campaign were involved in this broad scheme to rip off the Minnesota state welfare system. Do you know what he is referring to?
I really don't, and I don't think the secretary himself understands what he's referring to.
This news just breaking moments ago. Fox News has obtained photos of one of the Somali illegal immigrants wrapped up in the Minnesota fraud scandal, posing with several high-profile Minnesota Democrats, including Congresswoman Ilhan Omar.
Well, now investigators are tracking the web of fraud to other Minnesota Democrats, such as Congresswoman Ilhan Omar.
Developing now, despite arguing she is not worth millions, a new financial disclosure found Representative Ilhan Omar's net worth could be as much as $30 million. The vast majority of the money coming from her husband's two companies.
President Trump wants answers. Writing on Truth Social, quote, Congresswoman Ilhan Omar is worth over $30 million. There is no way such wealth could have been accumulated legally while being paid the salary of a politician.
Congresswoman, can you tell us what your response is to the Oversight Committee launching an investigation into your net worth, you and your husband's net worth? They're claiming that it's risen rapidly. What's your response to what they're saying? Do you think they'll find anything in their investigation into your net worth?
Minneapolis is in another state of complete chaos. You probably already know that, considering if you have been alive in the last 24 hours, you know what's going on with another person being shot by federal agents. This is crazy, absolutely insane stuff. But we want to focus on fraud. And we want to focus on Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. You know her. She represents Minneapolis, very vocal about immigrant rights and fighting for the people, don't like Trump, all that stuff. But a big question is how someone goes from being worth basically nothing to potentially worth $30 million in 1 year.
Woman Ilhan Omar's net worth went up nearly $30 million. The question is how. Here's what we know. Omar's husband, a former political consultant, owns a venture capital firm based in Washington, D.C. and a winery in California. Take a look at these numbers. In 2023, Omar disclosed a maximum of $50,000 in assets at the winery. The next year, Dana, that number increased to $5 million. Meanwhile, her husband's company, Rose Lake Capital, reported a maximum of $1,000 in assets in 2023. The next year, it was $25 million.
And before you ask, she did not drop a hit album. She's not playing point guard for the Timberwolves. She didn't invent the next TikTok. She is a congresswoman making a respectable $174,000 a year. I think most people would love to make that kind of money. But the math is not mathing, and she's trying to pretend that this is all just fake lies and all made up stuff, and everyone is trying to attack her. But there's some issues that we need to dive into because this is connecting her to all of that fraud that's happening in Minnesota. Let's get into it.
If you look at this document, you could see it says assets and unearned income. If you look at the asset for 1 million to 5 million, the income is 5 to 15,000. And if you look at the asset for 5 million to 25 million, it says none right there. Learn to read before you post misleading shit. Bye.
So in 2018, just 7 years ago, Ilhan Omar's net worth was negative $60,000. She was in debt, student loans, the whole thing. Completely normal for most Americans, right? But you fast forward to 2023, her financial disclosure shows that she got about $51,000 in combined assets. Again, pretty standard for a congresswoman that's just been in office for a few years. Then 2024 hits, and suddenly, and I cannot stress this enough, her financial disclosure shows assets worth between $6 million and $30 million. So let me show you exactly where this money supposedly came from, because it's two businesses, just two, both owned by her husband, Tim Minette. Business number one is the winery. That's the winery that her husband co-owns in Florida.
Her family is amazing at business because look at the way that her net worth has increased over just a single year. 2023, this was a business that was owned by her husband, the E Street Crew Winery. 2023, it was valued at a maximum of $50,000. 2024, that value jumped to $5 million.
That is a 9,900% increase in 12 months for a winery whose website doesn't even work anymore, whose phone number has been disconnected, whose last social media post was in 2023. Now, I am not a business expert, but typically when a company's value increases by nearly 10,000%, there's, business happening, sales, customers, a functioning website, maybe a viral post here and there, something. There's another business, the venture capital firm that had $42.
When she started in 2019, she had a negative net worth. Her personal household net worth has gone from negative to $30 million, and her husband's Rose Lake Capital firm, a consulting firm, has gone from just dollars up to $25 million in value.
Wynette, who started Rose Lake Capital, to your point. So Rose Lake Capital, you noted $42 and then skyrocketed to millions within a year.
Rose Lake Capital. This is Tim Mynette's venture capital firm based in DC. In 2023, the maximum valuation was $1,000. 2024, the valuation went between $5 million and $25 million. But wait, it gets even better. Court records from early 2024, literally the same year that they claimed this $25 million valuation came out, shows that Rose Lake Capital had exactly $42.24 in its bank account. I think most people have more money in their Venmo account than this capital firm. And yet, by the end of the year, they're saying that this company managing venture capital deals is worth up to $25 million. The company claims on their website to manage $60 billion in assets, with a B, $60 billion from a WeWork office with $42 in the bank. This makes about as much sense as a screen door on a damn submarine. What is Omar's response to all this? She posts on social media, my salary is $174,000 before taxes. I don't own stock or own a home. I'm still paying off my student debt. If you're going to lie about something that's public, maybe check my public financial statements. And you will see I barely have thousands, let alone millions. And the problem is people did check. The public financial disclosure forms she filed shows these exact numbers. Her income from those assets only show $5,000 to $15,000 or more, which somehow makes this worse because now you're telling everyone that your husband owns businesses worth up to $30 million that generates almost no income. That's not a business, that's a tax write-off with a lot of delusion. But let's talk more about Ilhan Omar's husband because this guy's history with business is concerning. So Omar hires Mynette's consulting firm, the E Street Group, back in 2018 for her campaign. Standard political consulting stuff, except then in August 2019, Mynette's wife filed for divorce, claiming he's having an affair with Omar. Both of them deny it. Then in October 2019, Omar files for divorce from her husband. And in March 2020, surprise, Omar announces that she's marrying Tim Mynette. But here is the financial part that should make your eyebrows raise like The Rock. Between 2018 and 2020, Omar's campaign paid Mynette's E Street Group nearly $3 million. That represented 78% of the firm's total revenue. Let me say that again. Her campaign was basically his entire business. And then when they got married and the public started asking questions, Omar cut ties with E Street Group in November 2020. And guess what happened? Those same campaign services that cost her $3 million when her husband's firm did it, now they only cost $1 million when other companies do them. So either Mynette was overcharging by 200% or actually, no, that's it. That's exactly what happened. He was overcharging by 200% and she was paying it with campaign funds. But wait, we're still not done with Mynette's business dealings. His partner in both Rose Lake Capital and the winery is a guy by the name of Will Halier. Now check this out. Will Halier and Mynette met working for, get this, now Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison when he was in Congress. Both were political operatives before they turned into venture capitalism in the wine industry. Halier was a senior advisor to the former Democratic National Committee chairman, Tom Perez, and also had an extensive history working for Ellison, who was also the DNC co-chair. You cannot make this up. And Halier just paid $1.2 million to settle a lawsuit from a South Dakota cannabis companies. What was that lawsuit about? Fraud. They accused Halier of promising to triple their $3.5 million investment in days or weeks. Spoiler alert, he did not deliver. They only got $1.8 million back, and Halier had to pay them $1.2 for the missing funds plus damages. So Tim Mynette's business partner in these supposedly multi-million-dollar ventures just settled a fraud lawsuit. And that business partner is co-running the companies that's supposedly making Omar's family worth $30 million. So this is a bunch of either incompetency or just outright fraud. And oh yeah, one more thing, because it gets worse. The company that Minetz co-founded has its funds frozen by the U.S. Treasury Department, by the U.S. Treasury Department's Office of Foreign Assets Control. The U.S. Treasury Office of Foreign Assets Control, they handle financial transactions related to international embargoes, terrorist organizations, and recognized enemies of the United States. That's not a normal Tuesday for a political consultant turned venture capitalist. When your business partner settles fraud cases and the Treasury Department freezes your assets, maybe, just maybe, your business isn't on the up and up. Then in late 2024, as the scrutiny increased, Rose Lake Capital website had a complete makeover. They scrubbed all details about their offices and their advisors. 9 people's names just disappeared because nothing says legitimate business like frantically deleting evidence when people started to ask questions. And of course, we could talk about the $250 million fraud called Feeding Our Future. We've discussed this on the channel. We didn't talk about the legislation that she tried to author to get more money. Because this goes more than just the donors that were committing fraud on that and giving her campaign money.
Treasury Secretary Bessent called Minnesota ground zero for what may be the most egregious welfare scam in our nation's history to date. 85 of the 98 people who were charged by the Justice Department with this welfare scheme are Somali. And you know this, the Treasury Secretary is probing whether any of the money was somehow funneled outside the country. He actually issued new standards. He's going to make it make someone disclose if they receive public assistance when they try to wire money out of the country, and he's lowered the bar for suspicious activity. What is the practical impact of doing that in the community?
It's just creating fear.
In 2020, Omar authored something called the Meals Act. This legislation's purpose was to loosen the oversight on food programs during COVID. Less accountability, fewer checks, easier to get that money. And with the Feeding Our Future, the program that stole $250 million was one of the programs that benefited from the reduced oversight. Many people believe that she wrote that act to enable the fraud. The program operating under the reduced oversight committed the largest COVID fraud in American history. I mean, those dots are pretty close together. Even the owner of the restaurant that Omar held her 2018 victory party, he's been convicted of stealing $12 million in COVID funds as a part of these schemes. She's given back the donations to some of this, but when you keep showing up in photos with people who end up being convicted of fraud, at some point you gotta ask, how did you not know? She likes to say that she did not know any of this is happening. And that's why she says she's being investigated, because Trump doesn't like her. This is all political targeting. But here's the thing, her husband's businesses went from basically worthless to $30 million during the same time period where hundreds of millions of dollars were being stolen through fraud in her district, in her community, among her donors. With all this coming out, what is Omar focused on? Immigration enforcement in Minneapolis. She wants to go back and forth talking about ICE and Trump. It's a masterclass in deflection where people are asking you, how did you get $30 million? And you respond with, well, they're trying to terrorize the community. You're changing the subject, and it probably works because now we're talking about ICE and immigration instead of the fact that her husband's winery with a disconnected phone number is supposedly worth $5 million. All you have to do is look at the timeline. You can tell that there's some issues going on here. She's allegedly involved in this fraud, that she used her abilities as a congresswoman to take advantage and enrich herself and her husband. And then you have very, very powerful people in the Minnesota government ignore all of it because they were worried about being called racist, and they allowed the Somali fraud to flourish. And now it got to a point where it's been so crazy and so out of hand that now we have complete chaos in Minnesota. I said it before and I'll say it again. If they took care of this problem years ago, there would not be a riot happening in Minneapolis. People would be chilling right now. They're literally chilling. It's like 10 degrees. It's freezing. It's freezing up here in New York City. Why are people outside fighting and going insane and crashing out? Because the government didn't handle this years ago. They allowed people to commit fraud without any accountability. The question is Ilhan Omar directly involved in the fraud? There's no charges against her. There's no indictment, but the investigations are ongoing. Do I think she's been completely transparent? Absolutely not. Do I think her husband's businesses legitimately grew to $30 million through savvy investments and business acumen when one of those businesses had $42 in the bank account and had a fraud-setting business partner? No. No, I don't. Do I think all this is suspicious? Do I think there's some shady things going on with all this wealth appearing during the same time period where hundreds of millions of dollars were being stolen in her district through fraud schemes? Yes. Yes, I do. So right now, the House Oversight Committee is investigating. Federal prosecutors are still working through the Minnesota fraud cases. So we're going to see some updates soon. But let me know what you guys think about this all in the comments below. Do you believe that she is completely innocent in this, or you think she's complicit in some of this fraud that's been happening in Minneapolis? Thank you for taking time to watch this video, and I'll see you guys in the next video.